to our Inside Redesign here on March the 18th.
We have Crystal and Jana Craig here. Jana,
Alrighty.
how are you?
It looks
Rorschach.
like. And so today we're going to be talking about Inside Redesign in lieu of all of the things that's going on in the school system with the coronavirus and the shutdown and the changing of location of learning and how we're going to do learning. And we've got two very special guests with us.
Renowned
Special guests and experts in the redesign process and in virtual learning. And that is Miss Ginger Lumen. Say hi, Miss Ginger.
Hello,
And
Ms. Ginger.
you can all see her vast knowledge of books behind her. She's read every single one. And also with us is the renowned Mr. Glenn Wiebe. And Glenn serves on our redesign team and also on the state standards for government history, civics, and all of that. And so we're really happy to have those guys with us today. So, and Dr. Wyckoff, your co-host. So Dr. Wyckoff, let me kick it over to you.
So I want you to know that we had this really planned well a week and a half ago. And about the same time that the NBA closed down, our plans went out the window. And so we have visited, and we had a meeting this morning, a Zoom meeting. We've had about 87 Zoom meetings in the last however many days that we've been doing this now. But Brad Nuenswand was on, and we had a discussion about kind of the update on it. But he made some interesting comments, and we had a good discussion with Service Center people. And Brad, I wrote down a couple of things that Brad talked about. He said the work that we're giving the kids to do really should move forward, that when we finally get schools back to normal, whatever the new normal is, these are the kind of things we should see in school. And he mentioned project-based learning, integrated curriculum, engaging for the students, work that is for all kids. It serves all kids, and it will be competency-based, not time-based or age-based. It's going to be competency-based. So, Ginger and Glenn, you two have been working with several schools each on redesign. When you hear how I summarize what Brad talked about, that was an hour's worth in 30 seconds, by the way. What comes to mind to you two? What are you thinking about when you hear those? Ginger?
I'm excited. I think that's possibilities. These are things that can happen. I think that we have an opportunity now in front of us that kind of begs us to do that sort of thing, and to really not take a small bite, but take a real bite and figure it out in a way that gives us a little cushion for mistakes to be made.
Mm-hmm. Glenn, what do you think when you hear that?
Yeah, when you read that list off, a lot of that sounds really familiar as we started. As we go in, and Ginger's been doing this a lot longer than I have in terms of redesign and working with schools. But when we go into a building and talk to principals and talk to staff, these are the same sorts of things that they're asking questions about right now. I mean, say like a week ago, the old normal of how can we create good prompts for students to do PBL? What does it look like for a 5-year-old? What does it look like for a 10-year-old? What does it look like for a high school kid? I mean, asking that sort of really good question, whether it's a face-to-face blended or, this new normal that we're going to be in for the next couple of months, it still comes down to the problems that we give our kids to deal with and work with and research and solve. And so as we come out of this at the end, and we will, the cool thing that, again, I'm stepping back from this a little bit because I'm not in the classroom. My wife, who teaches 5th grade, is already thinking about what this could look like, obviously. when schools come out of this next fall, they're gonna. The cool thing is that they're gonna have some experience on what this should look like. Anyway, it's an opportunity. It is challenging, and I think my wife right now is just trying to like calm herself down, catch her breath. But she's also really aware of the opportunities that this is going to give her kids. So I love those 4 or 5 things that I wrote down as you were sharing those from Brad. Yeah, absolutely. This is what school can and should look like, whether it's in this new normal or next fall in the new normal.
Yeah. Does it make sense to you two that probably the first thing schools are going to do next week when they start talking is, number one, to deal with all the panic issues, and that initial oh my God moment, get through those things. Can they start to do these things with their kids working virtually? I'm going to say virtually. They can bring them in up to 10 kids. So, that does create some interesting dynamics. But can they do these things that we're talking about? Ginger, you guys been working all year on redesign. Okay, let's do it in a week.
Yeah.
So the good news is that we're not alone in doing this. There are schools and teachers out there across on the other side of the ocean who've been doing this for months. And I had the opportunity with Carmen Zeisler today to interview a teacher she taught in McPherson, and then she moved to Shanghai and taught there, and now she's teaching in Hong Kong today and has been virtual with her kids since January 23rd. And she didn't know how to do that. None of them did. And so she outlined for us in a little 17-minute call what her typical day looks like with some really great advice. And you're right on that first week is, we're not coming in and being like, all right, kids, sit down and we're going to do this multiple choice, blah, blah, blah. That's not what it is. It's connecting, it's building relationships, it's calming, it's bringing some of the traditions that we used to do in our classrooms, whether it's the Pledge of Allegiance, to a chant, to a teacher who greets the kids every single day by name. It's that sort of thing. It's do we dance every once in a while for a brain break to go noodle? Let's do that, right? It's that opportunity in the first week to just get our feet underneath us. And I think if we come in blazing with a lot of hard content, we're going to miss a good opportunity to heal and reconnect and to be something. And I think really that ties into redesign as a whole big picture before any of this started, is to be together and understand our why, what we're doing, and that we can do it together. It takes us all, not just 1 or 2 people saying, you're going to do this, but it's all of us figured it out. And I had a kid one time way back in the day when we were doing our snow days virtually and doing project-based learning virtually, is there was a kid who said, listen, none of us knew everything, but all of us shared everything we knew. And I said, yeah. And that's what we get to do here in redesign and in this virtual and changing world.
Ginger, you bring up a really good point. We focus so hard on doing things, in our schools and in everything we do, that sometimes we slip into being human doings instead of human beings. And so it's really refreshing to hear you say, we're going to have to start with the healing, because there's a lot of stress out there. There's a ton. And I think it's really interesting that you began that way. And I'd really encourage superintendents to start there. Clear the brain, get them to thinking.
Well,
Go ahead, Glenn.
Well, one of the things, sorry, Ginger, one of the things that I've heard over and over in the last couple of years as we've been working with schools and redesign and working with KSD staff and working with other people who are involved in this is that, yeah, we're not sure what this is going to look like. We know it's good for kids and we know in the end it's going to be awesome. But right now we're going to try this and then we're going to adapt it. And then we're going to try it again and we're going to try something else. And I think that message of redesign of we're going to continue to adapt and change in the process, that here's a strategy that we think is going to work, but now we have it didn't work so well, so let's try something else in a different way, to give ourselves permission to do that. In redesign has always been, I think, one of the biggest ahas for me, and I think a big aha for a lot of teachers and administrators is, you mean we can screw up and that's okay? absolutely. And in the next 2 months, can you, I mean, give yourself permission that in the next couple of weeks, we're going to try a lot of different things, and some of them aren't going to work real well. And awesome. We learned that those don't work very well. Let's try something else, and give teachers permission and students permission to not get it right the first time. And the part that I really like, I can't remember the actual quote, but basically some teacher in one of our meeting, a redesign meeting, said, we don't have to get it right. We just have to keep trying to make it right. And that's the right thing to do. Figure it out. It's gonna be okay. Let's just be really flexible and forgiving, and it's gonna be right in the end.
That's kind of our slogan on this webinar.
PBL, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we now are practicing
Yeah.
PBL with
Yeah.
our kids,
Yeah.
you know, and not as guinea pigs, but as doing the right thing in the moment we have right now. And that's what we want our kids to be able to practice. I still say teachers teach how they're taught. Well, now we're learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like the person that decides they want to go parachuting and they practice all the stuff on the ground. But when you jump out of that plane, we're not practicing anymore. I kind of feel at times that we're not practicing anymore this week. You know, we've had, how many hours of meetings have we had this week, Dr. Cook? 300?
At least 300 today.
Today. That's what I thought.
It's been the longest 10 days of this past week that I've ever had.
Okay, so
I
you
saw
two.
somebody say, this week has been the longest year ever.
We need some advice, because one of the things that I will speak for myself, not for Dr. Cook, that I have observed, some teachers in the redesigned schools have kind of adopted this pose. And they don't say it, but the message is, over my dead body. All of a sudden, they don't have a choice anymore, but we got to help those people.
Yeah.
Am I off target when I say there are some teachers in the schools you've worked with?
I'm going to say very few are cross-armed in redesign
Good.
schools. I think there are schools that are pondering redesign, and they've got folks like this. But I think once they're in it, and once they feel and see, they're starting to say, okay, well, this is where we are and we're doing it. I think our redesign schools are, they're game.
That's really good to hear. This morning,
It is.
yeah, this morning I was in a discussion with some superintendents, and one of them made the comment, they're not a redesign entity. In fact, I would say just now starting to think about it. But the comment was made, we have so many people that are going to want to just create a packet in this new environment, put it in a folder and deliver it to the kid, which is nothing different than what they continue to do in our classroom. So it struck me, Steve, when you say, well, they fold their arms, that's the image that went through my head when I heard that this morning.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with people who do those packets, though, because it gives them space, and then they'll start to see what other teachers are doing that aren't packets, and maybe they'll see some courage because they'll see it with their own kids. Sometimes people need to see it before they can do it.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, we got to start where they're at and then move them. So.
And I would also argue a little bit that I think the four of us would use the word packet in a very derogatory way, in terms of this is just busy work, it's mindless, it's just repetitive, it really doesn't teach critical thinking skills. But I want to give, especially in the next couple of months, I want to give teachers permission to use that term maybe in a different way. We just talked about how long today was with our 300 hours of Zoom meetings, and I would 100% agree. It's going to be the same with kids. We can't do this, expect 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours of virtual teaching, learning time every day for the next 2 months. That's just that's not good. And to find ways for non-screen time, even if all we do is say, here's a packet, I need you to color it. I mean, for second grader, let's color. I'm okay with that. But I can give a packet that's non-screen time, non-tech time, and still do some of the critical thinking skills in paper and pencil ways. And I want to give teachers permission to do that. I think that's really important for teachers and for kids, just to get away from the computer a little bit and do other kinds of hands-on paper and pencil manipulative sort of things. And I don't know, Ginger, if you have specifics for that, but packet is
Yeah,
a
we're gonna
bad
get
thing, but it can also be a good thing if we do it right.
Yeah, and have permission to just be like, let's get something going, and then know that our next touch will be better, and then we'll be better, and we'll improve as we go through this. The lady we interviewed today, and then there's a group that I'm in that, again, people from Singapore, people from all over the place have been doing this quarantine for a while, that it takes longer. What you would normally think that I'm going to hand you this and you're going to do this in the classroom is going to take way longer virtually. And that's okay. Just know that. And then I can't even tell you the number of ideas and projects that right now I could spit out some that we could just hand to our kids and get going on some great project-based learning in their homes. That's interesting and engaging to them. If we can add choice to that for them, oh, choose this or this or this. There's so many ways to go in-depth learning, but still there might be a place for packets as well. And it's okay.
I want to show you something.
This is always
As our schools start, one of the things that we have seen in our leadership meeting is that we're kind of all over the board. I felt like a ping pong ball several times today.
Yeah.
I think the discussion as we move forward my opinion, needs to start with this: an intense focus on the success of each kid. That's what the Kansans Can Vision's all about. It's not just about surviving the year. This is where we still want to go, even though our kids aren't coming to us every day. Is that doable?
Yes. I mean, first of all, you say each student, not all students. Good. That's good that we're looking at each student individually. I've heard over and over from special education teachers who are worried about their babies. And maybe we can't do everything all at once. Maybe we don't have everything figured out right away. Maybe I don't know how to meet that kid's needs right now. But let me get in here and start something, and I promise I'm not going to leave your baby behind.
Glenn, what do you think?
Yeah, I again, I think teachers and administrators right now are sort of in this, I just need to survive another week. And I think that can very quickly escalate, and we just need to survive until the end of May and not worry about each kid. This is the mantra that needs to be in every meeting that teachers and administrators have, especially in the next couple of weeks, is that, survive for a week. This is rough. We get it. We hear you say that. I mean, this morning we heard from a special ed director saying, I've got 15 districts. What am I going to do? Kind of a panic thing. We get that. But if this is the focus for us between now and the end of May, it helps us really make sure that we're not just treading water, that we really do want to do what's best for kids, even in a situation that could be difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. A mantra like this, we should be making t-shirts.
Hey,
or hats.
Here's an idea.
Something.
Hey. And they'll be on sale at ESSDACK. When Monday, Dr. Cook. Hang on, let me get organized here. Which isn't easy. I want to share another slide. Ginger, a guy that you and I talk about occasionally, Phil Slechty. And this was a quote from Phil Slechty that I think also has tremendous implications as we look at preparing work for kids to do. We talked a lot about this before the coronavirus. It may be even more important now. A teacher's job is to create meaningful, engaging work whereby the kids learn the things we want them to learn.
I agree with that 99.9%.
What's the 0.1%?
I can't just go along with, right? I love Phil Schulte's work. I really do. There was one word I would change there, and I would say environment instead of engaging work. I want my kids to create the work for themselves. So I want to create the environment that invites the work. I don't want to motivate kids. That's a comparison I say a lot, is that I think that oftentimes I've said it a lot, and now I'm not anymore. Let's motivate our kids. Stop motivating them. Stop it. How do we create the environment that makes them want to learn?
Yeah.
To want to do the work for themselves. And one is an external force, and the other is an internal, oh, I'm going to do this. And as a teacher, that's back to the art of teaching again, is I can create this environment. Now, what power do I have here to create something where kids want to be, and that they don't want to leave, and that they want to do the work? How can I hook it into them? And that's, again, thinking about each student.
Glenn, what do you think?
Well, this is, I have not heard Ginger. I have heard Ginger say a lot of things, most of them 99.9% awesome. This is,
That's generous.
this is one of those things I've not heard her say before. No, I love that, to create a meaningful and engaging environment where kids create their own work. I love that sort of change. When I first got here at ESSDACK, this was literally one of the first things that I heard Steve say, amongst many other things. But this is one of those quotes that has stuck with me. I don't think a lot of teachers hear this ever or enough. We have a really good friend whose daughter is going to be a first grade teacher next fall at Abilene, Kansas. I mean, I don't think that's private information. She's excited to start teaching first grade next year. And I am convinced that she is convinced that her job is to teach kids, not to create that environment that Ginger was talking about. I think we just need to continue to put that message out there that our job is not to teach kids. I mean, it's not teacher directed, not teacher driven. It's create the environment. I love that, Ginger. Yeah, now I got Steve isms in my head and Ginger isms in my head all at the same time.
Well, and Crystal made a comment in the chat. She said, Steve Wyckoff is awesome, and thanks for the great motivation for the next few days of decision making. That may be a paraphrase.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it's.
I see that chat. I'm right here. I can see it.
Heart.
That's editorial liberty there.
I'm sure she meant to type.
But Crystal's exactly right. We need to stay focused on the success of each kid, and that whole idea of creating that environment that drives it forward. So with that, this whole redesign process, what a great opportunity we set in the middle of. The question I have, as we think about Phil Schlechte's statement about Ginger's modification to it, which is great, what things out there in the system are preventing us from doing that? We have a lot of things systemically in our world of education that tend to push back on things like that. And then with this change, we're going through this immediate change. What's that system going to do? I mean, it in and of itself may rumble. So I throw that out there just for reaction, I guess. It's creating a lot of thoughts.
What's the thing that's standing in our way in a month ago in redesign schools? Nothing. I believe that KSDE is working their tails off to make sure that what these redesign schools are finding, doing, trying, prototyping, and proving has room to grow, to exist and grow. I believe that. In this new normal, I think that we don't know yet. I think the biggest hurdle is the unknown. And the only way to jump that hurdle or to knock it over or whatever is to just do it. We're going to find the unknowns, and then we're going to say, oh, now it's a known. And this is how we respond to that. And it's, you know, as you guys talk a lot about, it's the adaptive problem. And that's where we're at. And it's for somebody like me who's bold and who isn't afraid to make mistakes. It's exciting. For somebody who wants to be told what to, when to, how to, I say, welcome to 2020 in a world that's different. And we've been saying that for decades. Some of us have been, that the world is different now. And now it is. And it's no longer theoretical. And what a great opportunity to try out some new stuff. Horrifying.
Yeah.
But what other option do we have?
See, and I think,
Down.
yeah, I think you touch on the one thing, and before a week ago, the biggest barrier to redesign was our own fears and our own mindset. Strangely enough, yesterday the governor said, I'm going to take that mindset away as an excuse because there is a new reality. Like it or not, good and bad, but it's a great opportunity. What a great opportunity to create that new normal, whatever it is.
And we're not alone. We have people who've been experimenting with this for decades that we can learn from and not have to trip over some of the same mistakes. So when the task force has reached out to us to give feedback on certain things, we have been delighted to give support and help for that. And we'll continue to love to give support to folks who are like, hey, what about this? Have you thought about this before? Glenn, have you ever? And I know that if Glenn has never thought about it before, he can think about some things and he is connected with people who know things and can provide support back for folks who don't have time or have never considered and want somebody just to be there with them. And I think that's what we do really well.
You know, yesterday during one of our Zoom meetings, our leadership meeting, I was emailing with Mike Cargill out at Stafford High School and Stacy Wheeler at Prairie Hills Middle School, both big project-based learning people, doing some different things, but really into it. And they're both on spring vacation. Well, they were on spring vacation anyway, okay? This week. But I asked them, I said, just out of curiosity, are any of your kids contacting you this week for help, to give you information, any reason about their projects? They both said yes. That's a pretty good indicator. Kids are engaged, at least some kids are really engaged in that stuff. And they're very much into that definition where their job is to create that environment. But the work the kids are doing, they've had choice in, and they chose it, and they want it for a reason other than somebody else wants them to know it.
The kids there have more than just choice. They have ownership. And when they have ownership, you can't stop the learning. And that's true of employees as well. And I think that I'm lucky, so lucky to get to work with you guys, that you give us ownership of things. And there's oversight too, just like there is in the classroom. You know, you don't just let a kid, hey, have fun. There's ownership and oversight. But when somebody owns the learning, you can't stop them.
What are you thinking, Glenn? What's going through your mind?
Literally, this is the new normal. I need to step away a little bit because my internet's freaking out. And I'm pretty sure my daughter's streaming Netflix right now. So I'm going to go straighten her out, then I'm going to come back. This is the new normal that we're all going to get used to. Hang on. You guys go about your business. Causes the American Civil War were not that big of a deal to discuss.
Yeah, we may have one other thing to talk about. Ginger, I'm gonna give you another slide to look at. You know, we always try to talk about these things. These are the things that Kansans said they wanted in their schools. You know, that's kind of the redesign principles of redesign. What we're seeing with the kids that are really engaged, all of these things are happening at once. The big surprise I had for people that are really doing a great job with project-based learning and doing these things, the social, emotional well-being of the kids doing it. Yes, it's a whole different level. Have you always experienced that and you just haven't been telling me?
Experience that the kids are doing all of these in project-based learning?
And the social emotional piece of it.
So when our work in trauma-informed, in the trauma-informed movement, started coming into ESSDACK, I was surprised. I thought, well, I kind of know a little bit, but then I started learning a whole lot more, and I accidentally did these things with kids, and I messed up. I messed up with kids too with project-based learning because I didn't know any better. I was shifting a lot of my learning in one place and not fast enough in other places. And my social emotional was not the greatest. I grew up with a drill instructor for a dad, and I'm good at doing that. And that doesn't mean it's good, but I am good at it. So I've had to learn in this process too. And once I've thought about that, and that's one of the things I like again about ESSDACK is that we want people to start out thinking about the trauma-informed approach. By the way, I will talk about trauma-informed approach before I talk about social emotional, because there's some science behind this. And we start to look at the emerging research that comes out between these two. A lot of the social emotional curriculum that we see out there, the science is based in things that were found in the 1950s and 60s. Whereas we have new science now, there's emerging science that comes out. So I'm going to always hesitate to say social emotional. If other people want to say that and work through that, that's fine. That's fine. But the words that come out of my mouth is that. I think that though, as I've learned more, the kids were very much involved. In fact, as Kansas started talking about shifting our schools, not only with redesign, but then again in the past couple of days, I've had former students reach out. I've had former teachers of mine reach out and say, look, we were ahead of our time. And I'm not sure we were ahead of our time. I just think we're now all moving this direction. By the way, remind me, Steve, I want to get you the updated slide of this. This is almost exactly up to date. It's not quite. Our community partnerships also want to talk about families and businesses and things like that too.
Yeah, and you are right.
99.
I don't hear that a lot. Thank you.
You hear that a lot.
This is being recorded, so.
So there will be evidence of my mistake.
Yes.
Okay. The gist is all there. You have it all. If it was really wrong, I would have said something right away. But no, it's good. We just changed some words. The state changed some words on that to be a little more precise.
Okay, so I'm going to give you another impression that I have about redesign schools. And you tell me if it's a misconception. First impression that I have is that schools are trying to do the things that were in that slide, but they're trying to do each one of them in isolation. I don't think there's enough time to do all that stuff in isolation. It's got to come together in a more integrated approach.
I think that's the instruction that we've been in direction and support that we've been giving from the start. I think that maybe there were some miscommunications or misunderstandings early on at the beginning of last year when this first rolled out. But by the end of the year, people were saying, we're not doing these as 4 goals and 4 different principles. These really do grow together. And so if somebody has that misconception, it's an old one. They may still have it based on really old information. If you're holding that information, talk to somebody who's in the process right now, whether they started it a year ago or 2 years ago, or if they've just recently started it, and you'll see that they know that these are integrated. Yeah, for sure.
Glenn, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that's the beauty of PBL, of the badging project that you're leading here at ESSDACK. But intentionally finding ways for those 4 principles to be embedded in all of the things that we're asking kids to do and asking them to design for themselves is you need to find ways to put these things in as that's just intentional. That's just normal. We're not going to teach in silos anymore. And I guess that's one concern that I have with this next 2 months in schools is that just literally because of the physical social distancing that we're going to have to do, teachers can't talk with other teachers as easily. Kids can't work. I mean, it's going to have to be really intentional. Let's have conversation about it. Let's not just do math, and let's not just do English. Let's not just do social studies. Let's do things together so that we're addressing all 4 of those principles in the work that we're asking kids to do. That has to be really intentional, especially in the new normal, if that's the language we're going to use from now on. The new normal is going to be harder for those 4 things to happen, because we're separated literally physically, and we need to force ourselves to have those conversations.
Yeah, though, go ahead, Ginger.
But in integrating them, as Glenn pointed out there, it's really going to be easier on the kids.
Yeah.
Because if we stay in silos, which is easier for us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Then we're going to be having kids at the computer.
Yeah.
For a long time, every single day, and that's not good for kids. So how do we now? Maybe we start out the first week or 2. I mean, we've got 8.5 weeks to do this, right? Or more. I don't have a crystal ball. So maybe we start out the first couple of weeks just getting our feet underneath us. It's siloed out just because it's about us right now, because if we're not grounded, we can't help the kids. And then we have those conversations. Again, that teacher that we talked with this morning from Hong Kong said they have meetings every single day at the end of the day. She has teachers on a regular basis that she reaches out to, whether it's grade bands or whether it's content or whether it's where she says, hey, I need help, and that they're building together so that they're not isolated.
And in some ways, that well, we're going to have a Zoom meeting every day at 4:30 or every day at 4 o'clock. Very intentional. We've never done that before, but now we have to, and we have the tools and we have some of the technology available for those meetings to not be as difficult as maybe they could have been. We just have to plan for that to happen. I talked to a couple teachers this morning, and it's like 4th grade camp. I mean, we're going to have camp. We're going to plan all our activities around this idea of a summer camp, but it's intentionally integrating all the stuff together, because they realize that we can't do this separately and have kids do math and then do whatever. We got to do it all together. And I thought that was a great idea. That's awesome.
I think one of the side effects that I'm seeing of HeadRush and using it, HeadRush is the application we use to warehouse projects and to attach standards to them and all that stuff. I think one of the side effects I'm seeing is that people are seeing projects and badges from other areas, and it's becoming much easier to say, ooh, Glenn, that social studies project has a ton of language arts in it. If we would add this one thing, I can use that for my English class.
Yeah.
And then I think that's where we're going to reduce the amount of time, but get more done. Because we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
But in order to do that, we have to recognize that we want to step out, and that there are other sources that we're going to look at through our lenses to see what we can bring to you, and then be receptive to when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I think I can enhance your work. Wait, this is my work. No, these are our kids, right? So how do we enhance for them, not just my work?
Yeah.
We have to be really.
That goes back to Phil Sletke's quote that you popped up there. I mean, our job is not to design the work. Our job is to create an environment where kids want to do the work that they design. And it's exactly right. It's not my work. These are our kids. So let's figure out how to make that environment best for them.
So final thoughts, Ginger? Boy, I'll tell you what, the whole redesign has taken on a whole new meaning, hasn't it? Give us your big picture thoughts about it. We'll come back in a month and do this again and see if they've changed.
I personally, I am stupid excited about this. Professionally, I'm cautiously excited about this. Personally, because I think now we have, there was a superintendent one time who Katie and I were invited out to his school district, the very first in-service of the year. And everybody made these little boxes, and we wrote things on the inside of the boxes. And I don't remember what those things were, but they were things that were meaningful to us about school. And then we all went outside and we threw them in this big 55-gallon drum. And this is in Western Kansas. It was windy that day. I'm just going to lay that out there too. We all threw it in there, and then he took some lighter fluid and lit the sucker on fire. He said, "We're burning the box." And Katie and I were like, "Oh, what?" I think he singed his eyebrow. And the whole idea is that he said, we're going to really do something different. And maybe whether we were ready for it or not, that's where we are right now. And I have every faith, every piece of faith that in Kansas, and by the way, the world's eyes are on us now. I've had people from Pennsylvania and beyond. Katie has had people from Texas and beyond saying, you guys have shut down school for the year. And we're like, no, we shut down the buildings-ish. And so that, I said, we've been leading in redesign quietly. And now, and I know we can do it. I know that Kansas teachers can literally lead the world in this new movement.
Glenn, your final thoughts.
I can't follow that. I'm inspired right now. Let's go. I'm ready.
Da, 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 da,
Well,
Right.
on a more serious note.
Well,
Hey,
I literally did on 2 different news networks this morning. It said Kansas schools closed for the year, which is literally what we heard yesterday too when the governor's talking. It's like, we're closed. No, we're not closed. The buildings are not available, but the learning is still going to happen. And I don't know if I'm stupid excited or what's another good adjective for
well,
stupid.
you're halfway there.
I'm giddy. I'm giddy. I'm giddy.
Giddy.
I think the opportunity is there. I think it is very, very scary. I'm married to a 5th grade teacher, and she's freaked out just a little bit this week. And yesterday, there was some prep I gave her before the big. Mike, I did not say anything. I didn't spill the beans, but she knew something was coming. But she's calmed down, and I think a lot of teachers are like that. It's like, oh my gosh, this is new. We just set that box on fire, and whoever singed his eyebrows off, that's danger. I don't know. But yeah, it provides us the opportunity. It is going to be a challenge, but the opportunity to do what's best for kids, and that's the part I'm stupid excited about, because kids are gonna be better off because we're doing things better for them.
Well, I'm stupid excited to hear what Dr. Cook's going to say to close us out.
Well, I think, I too am excited about the opportunities and the possibilities and what's going to become the new normal. The new normal. One thing, though, that I think one key part in this conversation is the concept of spiraling the knowledge. Instead of just circling it around like this, as we do sometimes in teacher discussions, well, I did that, you do this, you copy that, it just does this. What Ginger alluded to and Glenn has alluded to is this constant adding, collaboratively coming together as a community to learn from learners to provide a new way of doing learning. The notion of the environment and student voice and choice and all of that is so apparent, the opportunities. I guess the last thing I want to say is I truly do feel blessed to be part of the ESSDACK organization, and that the organization has such talented people in it, such as Ginger and Glenn and Steve, and many, many more. Katie, I can just keep going. They're all out there. Renee, Jane, all of them. But those guys are here, and I will to serve and help the schools make it through this first initial week and beyond. And the beyond part is where we want to go. We understand that this first week's going to be tough, but we're going to get through it. Give these guys a call. They can really help you get through all this. So that's my final words. This is a great show, guys. We thank you very much. So.
You know why it's so good is because they prepared weeks for it.
That's right. Yeah. One last thing real quick. I always say we all get smarter when we all get smarter, sharing resources and working together and finding out what's worked in China and Hong Kong and Singapore and New York and California, or wherever, where they've already experienced some of this. We have put together a page at ESSDACK of resources that we will continue to edit and add to as we learn more from other people That's the beauty of some of the things that Ginger and I get to do, is we get to talk with lots of different people from around the state and around the country. And again, I get smarter because I get to talk with them. And so we're sharing those with each other. We put that in the chat, but that resource can be found at ESSDACK.org/Corona resources, ESSDACK.org/Corona resources. So continue to check there. We don't want to overload people with a lot of information of how this might look, but we want to give that. We want to give you guys a place to go. If you're stuck, go there, start there, then contact us and get a hold of us, because we'd love to help.
Hey, thanks, guys. We will have you two on regularly throughout the coming years.
Stupid excited about that.
We're stupid excited
not
about
fired.
that. We will continue to update on a regular basis. Dr. Cook, I believe the next Inside Redesign is April 1st.
That is right.
1 o'clock in the afternoon. That is no joke. We will be on April 1st. So thanks for joining us. And that's it from the world headquarters of ESSDACK in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Located remotely.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you,
You know
guys.
what?